This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
6 weeks into his return to the White House, President Trump addressed a joint session of Congress last night and made the following observation.
America is back.
Trump spoke for more than an hour and a half about efforts to reshape the government and reassert America's footing on the world stage.
This will be our greatest era. With God's help, over the next 4 years, we are going to lead this nation even higher.
He promised tax cuts for the American people, defended tariffs on our trade partners, and celebrated what he called the most sweeping border crackdown in history.
The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation. We must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
The president vowed to work to see an end to Russia's war with Ukraine and broke news last night by announcing the arrest of an ISIS soldier who was responsible for the murders of 13 American service members in Afghanistan.
And he is right now on his way here to face the swift sword of American justice.
Michigan Senator Elissa Slotkin delivered the Democratic rebuttal and focused mostly on bread and butter issues.
Grocery and home prices are going up, not down. And if he's not careful, he could walk us right into a recession.
Still, Texas Senator Ted Cruz gives high marks to the president's performance.
This is the fifth State of the Union address I've seen Trump give. It was by far his best.
CBS's Stacey Lynn says Democratic opposition to the president's address was palpable.
A group of Democratic lawmakers, women, stood up, turned around, took some jackets off or blazers that they were wearing and showed letters on their back that said resist.
Several Democrats walked out of the speech in protest. Texas Democrat Al Green got kicked out of the House chamber for heckling the president. Former White House press secretary Ari Fleischer has more on the partisan divide on Capitol Hill.
If that same speech had been given 10 to 15 years ago, every single Democrat in that chamber would have stood up for all those people Donald Trump cited. And if they can't stand for the people who stood up in those balconies in the gallery, how can they stand for us?
A new CBS News YouGov poll shows 76% of Americans liked what they heard from the president last night. The feel of spring in the air today, but it's not all good news. There are flood watches and wind advisories in effect across New York and Pennsylvania, melting snow and rain, raising the prospects for ice jam flooding. Daytime highs today will tickle 60 degrees before a cool down to end the work week. Further south, at least 2 deaths are blamed on wicked weather in Mississippi. Tornadoes touched down in Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, where this couple witnessed a funnel cloud on the ground for 4 miles.
I was pretty alarmed. I've never heard winds like that in my life.
Sounds just like a freight train. It was so scary in the moment.
Heavy snowfall, meantime, causing blizzard-like conditions in Minnesota and Nebraska. This storm yesterday affecting some 170 million Americans in 20 states. The Democratic mayors of New York, Boston, Denver, and Chicago testifying today before Congress about their sanctuary city policies. These policies prevent local authorities from cooperating with federal ICE officials. New York Mayor Eric Adams.
My job is to be honest, forthright, and truthful and give my personal observation on what we're doing here and why we do what we do.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says activists in these sanctuary cities are tipping off illegal immigrants about impending ICE raids, and she won't tolerate that any longer. A federal court in Massachusetts says a school district was within its rights to keep from parents the knowledge of their child's gender transition. The parents sued the school in Ludlow after finding out their 11-year-old daughter now wanted to be referred to as a boy. The mom and dad argued the school district's non-disclosure policy violated their parental rights. The lieutenant governor of Texas wants to rename the famous New York strip steak after his state.
The Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says there'll be a resolution in the Texas Senate to officially change the name of the New York Strip to the Texas Strip to better market Texas beef. Patrick wrote on social media, just because a New York restaurant named Texas Beef a New York Strip in the 19th century does not mean we need to keep it that way. Dennis is the owner of the famous Delmonico Steakhouse in Lower Manhattan, where it's believed to have originated.
I think it's ridiculous. It's the New York Strip. It will always be the New York Strip, and good luck trying to change that.
The lieutenant governor, though, says New York should not get credit for Texas's hardworking ranchers. Scott Pringle, New York.
All right, Scott, thank you. Still to come on the Noon Report, a midweek edition. Guards vow to hold the line. Chicken pox at Penn State. And celebrating Ash Wednesday.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, tracking rain and showers, gusty breezes, and a change in temperature all on the way. We'll have forecast details coming up in 10.
All right, Kevin, thank you very much. Hundreds of corrections officers from all over New York rallied Tuesday at the New York State Capitol. The prison guards are demanding safer working conditions and took their grievances directly to the doorstep of Governor Hochul.
What we need is the governor to hear our voice. If she won't come to our house, we went to her house.
Retired CO Dave Washburn interviewed by WKBW.
How much longer do you feel like these guys are going to stay out here?
As long as it takes.
Governor Hochul reacting to that raucous rally.
All the screaming and yelling here will have no effect on me. People can be as noisy as they want, but this is not making our state safer, and that's my number one priority.
Strikes have ended at a handful of prisons, but not all. They continue at dozens more. The state started firing striking workers and terminating health care benefits. 8,000 prison guards from all over New York remain on the picket lines. 15 staff members are now on leave after the death of an inmate at the Mid-State Correctional Facility near Utica. Governor Hochul says extremely disturbing conduct may have caused that inmate's demise. He was just 22 years old. He comes just months after another inmate was beaten to death just a few hundred yards away from that facility. Starting May 7th, anyone over the age of 18 looking to board a domestic flight will need to have a passport or what's known as Real ID.
Real IDs have a star in the card's upper corner, while California has a bear and a star. While 99% of Maryland is already Real ID compliant, just over 30% of Illinois is.
NBC's Tom Costello says nationwide, less than 80% of the flying public is Real ID compliant.
To get a Real ID, you'll need to provide an ID or documentation that includes full legal name, DOB, social security number, lawful status, and 2 proofs of address, which could include a payroll stub, rent, or mortgage payment.
You'll also need to provide that documentation in person to the DMV. Again, the deadline is May 7th. Southern Tier Congressman Nick Langworthy spoke to Family Life News today about White House efforts to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse from the federal government. The Republican representative applauds the work of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency.
It wasn't until President Trump came into office and he deployed DOGE to go and investigate across every department of the government that we're finding these pockets of wasteful spending.
DOGE plans to eliminate trillions in spending over the next couple of years. Langworthy says, have at it.
The important thing here is that we focus on getting the country on a better trajectory. We're $36.5 trillion in debt. It's not sustainable.
Langworthy adds the federal bureaucracy is bloated with nearly 2.5 million employees.
And there are entire agency buildings here in Washington, D.C. that up until 2 or 3 weeks ago had no employees reporting to them for almost a half a decade.
Democrats are demanding more accountability at DOJ, given the unprecedented authority that advisory panel has in the effort to downsize Uncle Sam. Contract talks continue between Kaleida Health and the union representing nearly 8,000 healthcare workers in Western New York. These nurses tell WKBW staffing issues are their number one concern.
Without more staff, I can't take care of my patients the way I would like to take care of them.
Short staffing means we are stretched thin.
Wait times are long. The patients do get irate. It's overwhelming.
Hospitals and healthcare clinics are short by about 5,000 nurses in Western New York alone. Dr. Annette Wysocki is Dean of the School of Nursing at the University of Buffalo.
For our hospitals, I think partnering with schools of nursing to try to strengthen and grow those relationships. We have set up our dedicated education units with our Kaleida partners and ECMC.
The current contract with Kaleida Health expires at the end of May. Penn State has just confirmed 3 cases of chicken pox on its main campus in State College.
According to a statement from Penn State, students and staff who were in Mifflin Hall between February 17th and 24th or in the Thomas Building on February 20th between 1 and 3 p.m. may have been exposed. Chickenpox spreads through airborne particles and direct contact with an infected person, and symptoms could take 10 to 21 days to surface. The university is encouraging people to check their immunization records, avoid contact with those who are sick, and wash their hands often. Penn State is also working to notify close contacts of the infected individuals. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. A Vietnam War vet from Pennsylvania was laid to rest this week at Arlington National Cemetery. Army vet Frank Youngworth went on to become a teacher in Wellsboro after the war. Fellow vet and close friend Dale McKay tells WENY how he met Frank Youngworth.
We started talking and found out that he was a helicopter pilot. That struck a note with me because a lot of respect to those guys that flew those choppers, because they would fly in and out of hot LZs. To us infantry guys, they were like angels coming out of the sky.
Youngworth joined some 400,000 other veterans interred at Arlington. Well, today is Ash Wednesday, traditionally the start of Lent. Family Life's Greg Gillespie has more on the significance of this day for Christians.
The observance of Ash Wednesday begins a 40-day countdown to Easter.
Lord, who throughout these 40 days for us did fast and pray.
The 40-day season is a reminder of Jesus' journey to the cross and an opportunity for individuals to reflect, to repent, and renew their faith. Greg Gillespie, Family Life News.
Thank you for that, Greg. Sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob OG Anunoby led all scorers with 29 points, and Jalen Brunson had 25, but the Knicks could not hold off Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. Curry finished with 28 points, and his Warriors beat the Knicks 114-102 at Madison Square Garden. It was another defeat for the Philadelphia 76ers, a 126-112 loss to the T-Wolves. The score was even at 80 entering the fourth quarter when the Wolves went on a 42-19 tear, and that blew the game open. The Spurs got a career-high 37 points from Devin Vassell, and they took down the Nets 127-113. Other winners on the hardwood, the Pacers, Raptors, Bucks, Cavs, Suns, and Lakers. On the ice, the Sharks blew the game open with 4 goals in the third period, and they knocked off the Sabres 6-2. Both Peterka and Thompson had Buffalo's goals. The Islanders eked out a 3-2 victory over the Jets. Kyle Palmieri, Brock Nelson, and Ryan Pulock all scored for New York. The Flyers got scorched by the Flames 6-3. The Penguins fell to the Avalanche 4-1. Also skating to victory, the Predators, Canes, Lightning, Stars, Ducks, and Wild. And Bob, this is kind of a no-brainer for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Super Bowl champions are making sure the NFL's best running back isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Saquon Barkley has signed a 2-year contract extension with the team. It's for more than $41 million. That makes Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history. That is a look at sports.
Wow, how about that? Thank you, Randy. And still to come on the Noon Report, grading the president's speech last night. Tariff turmoil triggers talk of trade war, and honoring DJ Daniel, the 13-year-old brain cancer survivor.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. A recent Wall Street Journal article highlighted a group of people called the Henrys. That's an acronym for high earner, not rich yet. The piece showcased earners that had incomes well into the hundreds of thousands, but still feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck. According to author Callum Borchers, the essence of being a Henry is feeling a gap between what you have and what you think you need to be comfortable, end quote. Now, of course, it's true that the price of many things, from housing to eggs to childcare, have never been higher. But some of the Henrys featured in the article have more than the economy to blame. For example, one mentioned her hefty student loan debt and luxury car payments as weighing down her list of expenses. As Borcher noted, and I quote, what these high earners consider essentials might be termed luxuries or even nonsense by the rest of us. Today, with food supply relatively secure and basic necessities widely accessible, we're told to pursue happiness, which will come in the accumulation of things. But that's not the way happiness works. Study after study shows that once our most basic needs are met, there's no significant difference in the level of reported happiness in correlation with the level of income. In other words, money can buy security, but it cannot buy happiness. One must choose, Jesus said, to serve either God or mammon, a term that refers to more than just money. But those who tie their contentment to the number of commas in their bank account will never truly find it. The discontentment described by the Henrys is deeply connected to a larger culture-wide crisis about what life's about and who we are as human beings. As David Bahnsen described in his book Full Time, a Christian vision understands work as calling, the way that we're able to steward what ultimately belongs to God and fulfill who we were made to be. It's not merely a means to store up what's in the end perishable. Bahnsen's book summarizes the inherent connection between work and the meaning of life, in fact, and what that means for how we should think about wealth. This is why Christians have hope in all kinds of economic times, boom or bust. This hope is an incredible witness to the one who made us, but especially in times like ours when we've lost sight of what life is all about. We have been bought with a price, and that price is even greater than what eggs cost these days. Request a copy of Full Time, Work and the Meaning of Life by David Bahnsen with a gift of any amount to the Colson Center right now. Visit us at colsoncenter.org/February. That's colsoncenter.org/February. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Outside we go next. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast. A call for this afternoon into tonight. Rain and showers, localized flooding, and rumbles of thunder. It'll be breezy and high temperatures in the 50s to near 60, dropping back into the 30s and 40s tonight. Blustery cold tomorrow, showers of rain and occasional snow and flurries for many, temperatures dropping through the 30s. On Friday, blustery cold, clouds, sun, flurries, and high temperatures in the 30s to near 40s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Great to have you with us today. Here's what's going on Wednesday, March the 5th.
The golden age of America has only just begun. It will be like nothing that has ever been seen before. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
President Trump addressed a joint session of Congress last night. He spoke for more than an hour and a half, promising to renew the American dream and fight for a common sense revolution. Kristen Welker moderates the NBC Meet the Press program.
What does all of this mean for the biggest issue for voters, the economy? More voters, majority of voters, in fact, say they want him to do more to bring down prices.
During his speech, Mr. Trump read a letter from Ukraine's President president that proclaimed Russia is ready for peace. He also announced the arrest of an ISIS soldier responsible for the attack that killed 13 U.S. service members in Afghanistan. And regarding the culture wars, Mr. Trump vowed our country will be woke no longer. More on the speech from CBS's Nancy Cordes.
America is back.
A self-assured President Trump declared the first month of his second term the most successful in history.
Do you know who number 2 is? George Washington. How about that?
He walked the nation through some of his most aggressive moves.
I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord. I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring. I signed an order making English the official language of the United States of America.
As Trump ticked off the highlights, some ticked-off Democrats held up signs that said false.
Correspondent Karen Curtis says most who watched the speech last night gave the president high marks.
According to a CBS poll conducted last night, 76% of Americans approved of the president's speech. The CBS News YouGov survey interviewed a nationally representative sample of speech watchers immediately following the president's address to Congress. Most speech viewers described the president as presidential, inspiring, and more unifying than divisive. A big majority also called it entertaining.
During that State of the Union-like address, the president promised tax cuts for the American people and defended the cost-cutting efforts of DOGE, the Elon Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency. Fox News political analyst Britt Hume.
This was the most boisterous, the longest, the most partisan speech I've ever heard a president give in this kind of setting, and I go back about maybe 50 years on this. I also think it may have been the most effective. I mean, if you ever doubted that Donald Trump is the political colossus of our time and our nation, this night and this speech should have put that to rest.
Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin delivered the Democratic rebuttal. Several Democrats walked out of the speech. Texas Congressman Al Green was ejected from the House chamber for heckling the commander-in-chief. Business analysts are worried newly announced tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China could trigger an all-out trade war with our largest trading partners. CNBC's Christine Roman.
Canada, Mexico, China, they account for 42% of all U.S. imports. The tariffs could drive up prices on products in nearly every sector, with those higher costs likely, at least some of them, passed down to American consumers.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is signaling today that there could be a compromise with Mexico and Canada if our neighbors to the north and south prove that they are doing more to fight illegal immigration and the drug trade. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Canadians are reasonable and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight.
Trudeau announcing yesterday that Ottawa is slapping $100 billion worth of retaliatory tariffs on us. Some experts predict gas prices could go up by 20 to 30 cents a gallon by next week if those tariffs are not relaxed. Multiple tornadoes touched down Tuesday across the South, damaging homes and businesses in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. One twister was on the ground for 4 miles. The high winds caused dust storms that turned the sky orange in Texas. Over 100,000 lost power there. There's blizzard-like conditions today in Minnesota.
On top of that, we've had these sporadic wind gusts topping out around 50 miles per hour, blowing the snow all over the roads, making it really difficult for drivers and for plows. And this is just one layer in this monster system that appears to have turned deadly.
Correspondent Maggie Vespa says there were 2 storm-related deaths in Mississippi. Closer to us, flood watches and wind advisories are in effect today. 4 Democratic mayors of self-described sanctuary cities are testifying today before Congress. The mayors of New York, Chicago, Denver, and Boston defending those controversial policies in the midst of a nationwide immigration crackdown. Hundreds of prison guards in New York held a rally yesterday at the state capitol. They're demanding safer working conditions, and they vow not to stop their more than 2-week-old strike until their demands are met. Governor Hochul says the strike is illegal and needs to stop.
If we're going to be arrested, you could be going to jail. You've lost your job, you lost your income, you've lost everything.
Southern Tier State Senator Tom O'Mara supports the strike and says it should not end until the HALT Act ends.
The jobs that you all do are probably probably the toughest, dirtiest, nastiest jobs of any in law enforcement, and you've done it with pride, and you're proud to be here today, and I am proud to stand with you.
8,000 corrections officers remain on strike at 32 prisons in New York. It is Wednesday, folks, the 5th of March, and you're listening to the Noon Report on Family Life.
Welcome back to another edition of Real Answers, a regular Wednesday feature during the Family Life Noon Report, where we discuss the issues that matter to families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you, Mark. Good to be here.
Oh, good to have you. Well, today we're going to talk about a bit of a modern take on Lent. To Ash Wednesday, many Christians will be fasting from something they love. Chocolate comes to mind, all kinds of, you name your personal vice. But one trend that seems to be gaining some traction this Lent is the electronic fast. I'm trying it for the first time myself. I know you've actually done this before, and I guess you somehow survived. So how was it?
Yes, I did. I'll tell you what, this is something that I think I've been incorporated somewhat routinely into my life, because it's just amazing how much these computers, these smartphones, these laptops, whatever, have gotten control of our lives. And it's like, there really truly is a withdrawal from it too.
Yeah, it's I mean, we hear about, fentanyl and cocaine and all that. It's a lot of similarities. Scary.
Especially some of these social media platforms, they are programmed to create a craving response, believe it or not, very similar to what an external chemical might do. Because if you think about it, you post something on Facebook or on whatever social media platform you're on, and you can't wait to see who saw it, and you can't wait to see how many likes and loves and this. So you're sitting at your desk trying to be productive, honor God with your work, and then all of a sudden you find yourself checking to say, oh, I wonder how many people looked at that post. That's actually a chemical-driven response in the reward center of your brain that keeps you going back to that.
Guilty as charged. It's you post something, you got to go throw a picture up there, and you got to know. Even for those of us who predate smartphones and social media, it's getting hard to remember life without all of our electronic appendages, which are supposed to serve us, but as you mentioned, it feels more and more like it's the other way around.
It does, and I predated as well. I mean, I have to think back to the days when I was in college or even before that, and I think, if I didn't have all this electronics, what exactly would I be doing with my time right now? I wouldn't be sitting here scrolling. I wouldn't be worrying about who did this or who did that on social media. I would be literally engaging in an entirely different set of activities, and I think that's what we need to do. I think we need to get back to where we ask ourselves, okay, I have a choice to make. I can either pick up this phone, hop on my laptop or my iPad or whatever, or I can engage in any number of other, probably more fulfilling and more productive and probably more healthy activities. So part of this is, what do I need to do to get to the point where I'm mindful again? Mindfulness just means I'm aware of the moment, I'm aware that I have a choice, and then actually making a choice that's overall better for you.
You're listening to Real Answers. I'm Mark Webster, along with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. We're talking about an electronic fast. Now, one area church that I saw is inviting members to do an e-fast this Lent. They had different tiers for it. The easy level was just giving up social media. The moderate one added quote-unquote entertainment, and the trifecta threw in news and information. And I had to rule that one out if I wanted to keep my job, but each one of those can be a vice unto itself, especially news these days. And they're all sort of intertwined now anyway. Many young folks get their news only as a byproduct of being on social media.
And well, Mark, and I think that social media and the internet and electronic platforms are so integral into our lives. I don't necessarily think that cutting them out completely for most people is really the answer, as much as it is getting it under control and being more proactive and, let's say, scheduling, if needed be, the amount of time you're going to be on it. For example, I'm going to speak directly to small business owners, let's say, that have a home business online. They're in the habit of constantly checking to see if they've got orders or checking to see who's posted on their advertisements or this and that. That's just as intrusive as using social media for personal reasons. So if you're a small business owner and you have an online business or you're selling things online, you got to set business hours. And business hours include when you're going to check your messages or check to see who's posted on your page or whatever. You got to be smart about this. You have to say, all right, This is part of my life, but I cannot let it control me. I have to set those hours. I'm not going to engage social media for any reason between the hours of whatever and whatever, so that you give the proper time you need for your family, for other responsibilities, and getting sleep too.
Well, to recap, Chris, then what can someone who decides to pull the plug for over a month here now expect when they come out on the other side?
Well, expect it initially when you first decide to do it. You're going to feel the pang. You're going to feel like, where's that phone? You're going to find yourself looking for your phone, looking for your laptop, but realize when you do that, that's a normal response to any habit that you're trying to cut out. So expect that it's not going to be easy right away. Make sure that you have a way of reminding yourself that you are doing this so that you don't habitually, again, pick up that phone and go on the internet or onto social media. Have other activities to replace it with, okay? You might have to just take a look around the house and get out that to-do list and say, okay, I better be having something else to replace it with. Otherwise, you're going to sit there and be like, just thinking about getting on social media, and that's not going to be good either. And then I would, quite honestly, Mark, I would think long-term beyond that 30 days and think, how should this be in my life, if at all? And for most of us, we're going to say, yeah, it should to some degree. Then what does that really look like? What does that look like? And how can you control it? It might be you decide, all right, after I'm only going to go on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, I guess it's called X now, you're only going to go on these platforms, let's say, twice a week. But just realize, too, that you're going to have to be on your guard, because if you're already spending way too much time, even cutting it back is going to be a challenge. So, but really decide that it's going to play a role in your life. You need to decide what that role is going to be.
Good advice there. You've been listening to Real Answers, a Wednesday feature of the Family Life Noon Report, where we discuss the issues important to families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. Thanks again, Chris.
Absolutely, Mark.
Thank you, gentlemen. Real Answers comes your way Wednesdays during the Noon Report. You can subscribe, listen to, and share this feature, as well as all our original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or FamilyLife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. A call for this afternoon into tonight. Rain and showers, localized flooding, and rumbles of thunder. It'll be breezy and high temperatures in the 50s and near 60, dropping back into the 30s and 40s tonight. Blustery cold tomorrow, showers of rain and occasional snow and flurries for many, temperatures dropping through the 30s. On Friday, blustery cold, clouds, sun, flurries, and high temperatures in the 30s to near 40.
All right, great work. Thank you, Kevin. Finally, at noon today, 13-year-old brain cancer survivor DJ Daniel was honored last night during President Trump's speech to a joint session of Congress. Daniel's always wanted to be a police officer and got to be in the gallery when the commander-in-chief made the following proclamation.
I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
How about that? DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2018. At the time, doctors gave him 5 months to live. That was more than 6 years ago. What a moment for that brave little boy last night. And that's our world. The world we live in, Wednesday, March 5th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.